I never thought the happiest day of my life would collide with the worst in such a spectacular way. For 3 years, Sophia had been my everything. The ring on her finger was a promise of our future together. My brother Marcus always had to one-up me since childhood, but proposing to my fiancée at our parents' anniversary dinner, that crossed a line no apology could erase. When I shoved him into that table of food, my mother immediately took his side. Called me unstable. Said I was overreacting. If you are watching this video, let me know where you are tuning in from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. Trust me, what happened next shocked everyone. Growing up in suburban Boston, I was always the responsible one. At 32 years old, I had built a solid career as a software engineer, creating security systems that protected millions of users' data. My apartment overlooked the Charles River, a place I had dreamed of living since college. I had worked hard for everything I had, climbing from an entry-level coding job to senior developer through long nights and countless sacrificed weekends. My relationship with my parents was complicated but loving. Dad, a retired English professor, was the quiet, supportive one. He attended every academic competition and baseball game, sitting silently but beaming with pride. Mom ran her interior design business with military precision, applying that same exacting standard to her children. She criticized more than complimented, but I knew in her way she wanted me to succeed. Sophia walked into my life 3 years ago when we both sought shelter from a surprise thunderstorm in a tiny coffee shop. The rain pounded against the windows as we realized all the tables were taken except one. We shared that table, and soon our life stories. She was a pediatric nurse, with a laugh that made everyone around her smile. Her curly brown hair framed a face that showed every emotion she felt. She could never hide her feelings. One of the things I treasured most about her. Our relationship progressed naturally. Weekend hikes became cooking classes together, became meeting families. 6 months ago, I proposed on the same coffee shop patio where we first shared a table. The diamond ring I had saved for months to buy sparkled on her finger, a constant reminder of our planned future. We had set a wedding date for the following spring, giving us time to plan the celebration we both wanted. With Sophia, I finally felt complete. She balanced my analytical nature with her spontaneity. When I overthought problems, she pulled me outside to watch the sunset. When she worried about a patient, I helped her see the positive impact she had made. We fit together like puzzle pieces designed to connect. My brother Marcus was a different story entirely. 2 years younger than me, he grew up as the family charmer. Where I was studious and reserved, Marcus was outgoing and effortlessly popular. His good looks and easy confidence opened doors that I had to work to unlock. Our childhood was marked by competition that always seemed to tilt in his favor. The wooden train set I received for Christmas disappeared into his room within weeks. The baseball card collection I carefully curated somehow became his prized possession. My parents noticed, but dismissed it as normal sibling rivalry. They did not see the pattern I lived with daily. The competition continued into adulthood. During my sophomore year of college, Marcus visited campus and left with my girlfriend of 6 months. 3 years ago, he leveraged family connections to secure a job interview at my company, then negotiated a higher salary than mine, despite less experience. Mom called it initiative. I called it what it was: manipulation. Despite everything, I tried to maintain a relationship with him. Family gatherings were easier when we got along, and recently things had seemed better. He congratulated me on my engagement with what appeared to be genuine happiness. We had shared a few brotherly beers, talking about our jobs and futures in a way that felt almost normal. My parents' marriage had reached 35 years, a milestone they were celebrating with a formal dinner. Mom had planned everything meticulously, from the catered food to the champagne toast. Their house in Lexington had been transformed with flowers and photographs chronicling their life together. Family tradition dictated large gatherings for every celebration. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and close friends would attend, but the anniversary dinner was intimate, immediate family only. Mom had specified this was a special occasion, one where important announcements could be made. Sophia and I saw this as the perfect opportunity to reveal our chosen wedding date, making their anniversary celebration even more meaningful. For all the difficulties in our family dynamic, I genuinely wanted peace. Each family gathering was another chance to build the supportive relationship I hoped for with my parents and brother. Despite past hurts, I believed people could change and relationships could heal. Looking back, perhaps I was naive to think the past would not repeat itself in even more painful ways. The day of my parents' anniversary dinner started with such ordinary happiness. Sophia and I spent the morning shopping for their gift, a digital frame preloaded with family photos spanning decades. We had collected pictures from relatives, scanned old albums, and created a visual history of their life together. As we browsed shops for the perfect card, I noticed Sophia checking her phone more often than usual. Her forehead creased slightly each time a message arrived, but when I asked, she quickly dismissed my concern. "Just work updates," she said. "A difficult patient case. Nothing to worry about." At lunch, she seemed distracted, stirring her soup without eating much. When I mentioned finalizing our wedding date announcement for that evening, she smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Looking back, these were warning signs I should have questioned more deeply, but I trusted her completely, never imagining betrayal was brewing. We arrived at my parents' house at exactly 6, the time Mom had specified in her 3 reminder texts. Dad met us at the door, his silver hair neatly combed, wearing the blue blazer. Mom always insisted brought out his eyes. He hugged me warmly and embraced Sophia with genuine affection. She had won him over completely the first time they met. Mom emerged from the kitchen in an elegant black dress, her perfectionism evident in every detail of the evening. Her greeting was polite but reserved the slight stiffness in her hug, revealing the emotional distance that had always existed between us. She had never fully embraced Sophia, always finding small details to critique about her career choice, her clothing, her family background. The house looked immaculate, with fresh flowers on every surface and photographs tastefully arranged on the mantel. The dining table was set with the good china crystal glasses sparkling under the chandelier light. Everything was perfect, exactly as Mom demanded. Marcus arrived 45 minutes late, but instead of the criticism I would have received, Mom welcomed him with excitement. He carried an enormous gift basket filled with imported delicacies, and an envelope I later learned contained tickets for a European river cruise. My digital frame suddenly seemed inadequate, another win in the unspoken competition. I noticed immediately something was off about how Marcus greeted Sophia. The hug lasted too long. Their eye contact felt charged with unspoken communication. When he complimented her dress, his hand lingered on her shoulder, seconds longer than appropriate. She stepped away quickly, avoiding my eyes. Dad, ever the peacemaker, ushered everyone to the living room for appetizers and champagne. As we settled into conversation, I tried to dismiss my growing unease as old insecurities surfacing. Sophia sat beside me, but seemed to angle her body slightly away, creating physical distance that mirrored the emotional gap I was beginning to sense. Dinner proceeded with Mom, recounting the story of how she and Dad met in graduate school. Marcus dominated the conversation as usual, embellishing family stories to make himself the hero or the victim, depending on which garnered more sympathy. He repeatedly referenced inside jokes with Sophia. I knew nothing about hinting at conversations they must have had without me. Sophia remained unusually quiet, laughing nervously at moments that did not warrant laughter. When our knees touched under the table, she subtly shifted away. Each small action built upon the last, constructing a wall of doubt in my mind. As dessert was served, I decided it was time for our announcement. I cleared my throat and began to speak about how happy I was to celebrate my parents' enduring love while planning my own marriage. Sophia tensed beside me. Before I could continue, Marcus tapped his glass with a spoon. The sound rang through the dining room, commanding attention. With practiced charm, he stood and began a speech about love and connection, about knowing when something is meant to be. My stomach tightened as he moved from his chair and circled to where Sophia Saturday. Time seemed to slow as he lowered himself to one knee before her. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a diamond ring that caught the light, larger and more elaborate than the one I had given her. The room fell into stunned silence. Sophia, you deserve someone who truly sees your worth. Someone who can give you the life you deserve. Marcus said, his voice steady and confident. These past months talking with you have shown me what real connection feels like. I know this is unexpected, but when something is right, you have to take the chance. Will you marry me instead? The shock paralyzed me momentarily. Months. They had been talking for months. My brain struggled to process the scene unfolding before me. Sophia sat frozen, her eyes wide with what appeared to be surprise, though I now question whether it was genuine. Dad half rose from his chair, confusion etched across his face. Mom remained, seated, her expression unreadable. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of my chair scraping back as I finally stood. What the hell is this? I demanded, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. Sophia, what is he talking about? Months. You have been talking to him behind my back for months. Sophia opened and closed her mouth, no words emerging. Tears welled in her eyes. But were they tears of guilt or merely being caught? Marcus remained on one knee, the ring extended toward her, a smug smile playing at the corners of his mouth. She deserves better than you, he said, looking up at me with a challenge in his eyes. She deserves someone who can actually provide for her, not some coding drone who will never move up. The rage erupted from somewhere primal inside me. 3 years of building a life with Sophia. 32 years of Marcus taking what mattered to me. A lifetime of my mother excusing his behavior. It all collapsed into a single moment of blind fury. I lunged forward, shoving Marcus with both hands. He toppled backward, crashing into the table. The anniversary cake slid to the floor. Crystal glasses shattered. The carefully arranged flowers scattered across the imported tablecloth. Marcus sprawled among the wreckage, the open ring box still clutched in his hand. Mom was on her feet, instantly rushing to Marcus, helping him up, checking him for injuries with the concern she had never shown me. Her eyes, when she turned to me, held pure condemnation. How dare you, she hissed. You could have hurt him. You always overreact. This is exactly why Sophia might be better off with someone more stable. Dad finally found his voice, attempting to calm the situation. Now let us all take a breath here, he began, but Mom cut him off. I want you out of this house right now, she told me, pointing toward the door. When you can behave civilized, we can talk. Sophia stood, trembling, tears streaming down her face. I looked at her, waiting for her to defend me, to deny Marcus' proposal, to explain. Her silence was its own devastating answer. The drive home passed in a blur of shock and betrayal. Sophia sat in the passenger seat of my car, occasionally trying to speak through her tears, but I could barely hear her over the roaring in my ears. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from my mother, which I ignored. When we finally reached our apartment, the place we had shared for over a year, it suddenly felt alien. Pictures of our happiness mocked me from every wall. The couch where we had cuddled watching movies now seemed like evidence of a lie. You need to explain, I said once we were inside, my voice dangerously quiet. How long has this been going on? Sophia paced our living room, arms wrapped around herself defensively. It's not what you think, Alonzo. Marcus has been texting me for weeks, but I never encouraged him. I told him I was committed to you. Then why did he say months? And why did he think proposing was even remotely appropriate? Unless you gave him some reason to believe you might say yes. She flinched at my tone. We ran into each other at the hospital when he came in for a checkup. He got my number from the patient contact form. I should have blocked him right away, but he said he wanted to make amends with you through me. I believed him. Her explanation sounded rehearsed, too neat. Each question I asked revealed inconsistencies. She claimed to have told Marcus to stop contacting her, yet could not explain why she had not told me about these interactions. She insisted nothing inappropriate had happened, yet her behavior at dinner told a different story. As we argued into the night, my phone continued to buzz. Mom had moved from text messages to calls, which I continued to ignore. Finally, I answered one from my father. His voice was tired, lacking its usual scholarly precision. This is all a misunderstanding, son. Your mother is upset about the dinner being ruined. Marcus says he thought you and Sophia had broken up. Come back tomorrow when everyone is calmer. The lies were multiplying. Marcus knew perfectly well Sophia and I were engaged. We had discussed wedding plans in his presence. This was no misunderstanding, but a deliberate attempt to take something else that belonged to me. Over the next few days, the family fracture deepened. Mom called repeatedly to lecture me about my violent behavior and lack of self-control. Marcus, she insisted, was just following his heart. My reaction was the real problem. Dad remained passive, unwilling to challenge her narrative or take a definitive stand. Extended family began taking sides as the story spread. Aunts called to express concern about my anger issues, having heard Mom's version. Cousins texted asking what really happened, their curiosity thinly veiled as support. Only my father's brother, Uncle James, called to say simply, "Your brother was out of line. Stand your ground." Marcus played his part perfectly, posting cryptic social media messages about heartbreak and missed opportunities, carefully worded to cast himself as the victim, while never explicitly mentioning what had occurred. Friends who knew us both sent confused messages asking for clarification. Through all of this external chaos, my relationship with Sophia deteriorated rapidly. She returned to our apartment each night, but emotional distance stretched between us. When I questioned why she still wore my engagement ring, she burst into tears, saying she never meant to hurt me. Trust once broken is nearly impossible to repair. I found myself checking her phone when she was in the shower, a behavior I had always despised. One night, I discovered deleted text messages between her and Marcus, dating back not weeks but 4 months. Messages filled with flirtation, only thinly disguised as friendly banter. When confronted with this evidence, Sophia finally admitted to a more complicated truth. She and Marcus had developed what she called an emotional connection. She insisted nothing physical had happened, but acknowledged their conversations had crossed boundaries of propriety. "I am confused, Alonzo," she said, twisting my engagement ring on her finger. "I love you. I really do. But when I talk to Marcus, he makes me feel special in a different way. He talks about traveling the world, about adventures. Our life sometimes feels so structured, so predictable." Her words cut deeper than any physical wound. The life she described as boring was the secure foundation I thought we both wanted. The weekend trips, the movie nights, the plans for children in a few years, all of it suddenly recast as a prison rather than a shared dream. The final breaking point came 3 weeks after the disastrous dinner. Following a hunch, I went to a cafe across town, one Sophia had mentioned casually as having great pastries. There they sat, Marcus and Sophia, heads close together over coffee, her hand resting comfortably under his on the table. I approached silently, standing beside their table for several seconds before they noticed me. The guilt that flashed across Sophia's face confirmed everything I needed to know. Marcus, however, showed no remorse. "You never deserved her," he said, not bothering to remove his hand from hers. "You never could give her what I can." Sophia finally pulled her hand away, tears forming. "Alonzo, please. I was going to tell you. I am so confused about everything." In that moment, clarity washed over me. "Let me simplify it for you," I said quietly. "The ring or him? Choose now." She looked between us, tears spilling onto her cheeks. When she remained silent, I had my answer. I turned and walked away, leaving behind both the woman I had loved and the brother who had never been on my side. The weeks following that cafe confrontation were the darkest of my life. I moved through each day, mechanically going to work, returning to an apartment now emptied of Sophia's belongings, sleeping fitfully. Friends called with concern, but I let most go to voicemail. What could I say? That once again Marcus had taken something precious from me, that my mother still blamed me for the whole situation. Jake, my college roommate and closest friend, refused to be ignored. He showed up at my apartment one Saturday morning with coffee and determination. He listened without interruption as I finally unburdened the whole sorry tale. "This is not the first time your brother has pulled this kind of thing, right?" he asked when I finished. "And your mom always takes his side." When Jake laid it out so plainly, the pattern became impossible to deny. This was not about Sophia. Not really. She was just the latest in a lifelong pattern of Marcus taking what was mine, and my parents, especially my mother, enabling his behavior. "You need to break this cycle, man," Jake said. "For your own sanity." His words sparked something in me. The fog of depression began to lift, replaced by a growing determination to understand the dynamics that had shaped my family and to finally stand up for myself. I started by reaching out to people from Marcus' past, an ex-girlfriend who had immediately stopped speaking to me after their breakup, former coworkers who had seemed uncomfortable around me. Each conversation revealed similar stories of manipulation of Marcus systematically undermining my relationships and reputation while presenting himself as the victim or hero. Tracy, who had dated Marcus briefly 2 years ago, provided the most insight. "He constantly talked about you," she said, "how your parents always preferred you, how you got all the opportunities. According to him, everything good in your life should have been his." This revelation stunned me. The narrative I had lived with my entire life, Marcus as the favored son, was apparently the opposite of what he believed. Our family dysfunction ran deeper than I had imagined. Encouraged by these revelations, I sought professional help. Dr. Watson, a therapist specializing in family dynamics, helped me see the larger picture. "Your brother displays classic signs of pathological jealousy and narcissism," she explained after several sessions. "And your mother appears to enable this behavior perhaps out of guilt or her own unresolved issues." Armed with this understanding and the evidence I had gathered, I decided it was time to confront my family with the truth. I asked my parents to meet me at their home, requesting that Marcus not be present initially. To my surprise, they agreed. Sitting in their immaculate living room, the scene of so many painful memories, I methodically presented what I had learned. Text messages between Marcus and Sophia going back months before his proposal. Testimonials from others he had manipulated. The consistent pattern of behavior dating back to our childhood. Dad listened intently, his academic mind processing the evidence. Mom initially rejected everything, defending Marcus with practiced ease. But as the evidence mounted, I saw the first cracks in her certainty. "Even if some of this is true," she said finally, "you still overreacted at the dinner. Violence is never acceptable." I looked her directly in the eyes. "Would you have preferred?" "I stand quietly while my brother proposed to my fiancée at your anniversary dinner. Would that have been an appropriate response?" For perhaps the first time in my life, my mother had no immediate answer. In that silence, Dad finally found his voice. "Marion, the boy has a point," he said firmly. "What Marcus did was absolutely inappropriate. We have been making excuses for his behavior for too long." As if summoned by the discussion, the doorbell rang. Sophia stood on the porch looking nervous but determined. I had not seen her since the cafe confrontation nearly 2 months earlier. "I need to tell you all something," she said when Mom let her in. "The full truth about what happened." Over the next hour, Sophia revealed the extent of Marcus' manipulation, how he had pursued her relentlessly, using information about my past relationships to create doubt about our future. How he had manufactured situations to be alone with her, always presenting himself as misunderstood and mistreated. How he had gradually convinced her that I would eventually hurt her, just as he claimed I had hurt others. Marcus showed up unannounced partway through Sophia's confession, his timing too perfect to be coincidental. He tried his usual charm, dismissing her account as exaggeration, painting himself as love-struck rather than calculating. But with everyone now aware of his tactics, the performance fell flat. "You have been doing this his entire life," Mom, Sophia said, surprising everyone, by directly addressing my mother. "You make excuses for inexcusable behavior. You enabled him to think this was acceptable." Mom started to defend herself, but Dad interrupted. "She is right, Marion. We both failed these boys, but in different ways. We failed Alonzo by never protecting him from his brother's jealousy. We failed Marcus by never setting proper boundaries. Watching my father stand up to my mother was like witnessing a solar eclipse, something I had always hoped to see but never expected to experience. The family dynamic shifted in that moment, foundations cracking, old patterns disrupted. I turned to Marcus, seeing him clearly, perhaps for the first time. "You are my brother," I said. "That will never change. But I cannot have you in my life unless you acknowledge what you have done and commit to changing." His response was defensive, angry then, manipulative, in quick succession. When none of these approaches worked, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Mom started to follow, but Dad gently took her arm. "Let him go," he said quietly. It's time he faced consequences. Sophia approached me as my parents went to the kitchen, ostensibly for coffee, but more likely for their first honest conversation in decades. "I made a terrible mistake, Alonzo," she said, tears in her eyes. "I let myself be manipulated, and I hurt the best man I have ever known. I do not expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know the truth." I looked at this woman I had planned to spend my life with. The anger had faded, leaving only sadness for what might have been. "Thank you for your honesty," I said. "I hope you find happiness." I meant it sincerely, but we both understood there was no going back. Some betrayals change you forever. 6 months have passed since that day of reckoning. I moved to Seattle for a new job opportunity, a clean break from the history and hurt of Boston. The distance has been healing, allowing me to build a life defined by my choices rather than family patterns. My relationship with my parents is slowly improving. Dad and I speak weekly, our conversations more honest than they have ever been. Mom is trying in her way, attending therapy to understand her role in our dysfunctional family. Progress is inconsistent but real. Marcus sent an apology letter 3 months ago. The words said the right things, but I remain cautious. True change requires more than words on paper. Time will tell if he is capable of the deep work necessary to break his destructive patterns. As for Sophia, we have had no contact since that final day. Through mutual friends, I heard she moved to Chicago for a fresh start. I wish her well on her journey. The betrayal I experienced was devastating, but it forced me to confront truths I had avoided my entire life. It showed me the importance of boundaries, of standing firm in your own worth. Most importantly, it taught me that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from people who cannot see your value, even when those people are family. If you have ever experienced betrayal by those closest to you, know that healing is possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible. It begins with valuing yourself enough to demand better. Have you ever had to stand up to family for your own well-being? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories of overcoming adversity. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, recognizing your own worth is the foundation upon which all healthy relationships must be built.